Hello, welcome, Roisin O'Farrell. How are you?
Hello. Hello, Denise Donnelly. How are
Thank
you?
you so much for joining us tonight on our last live of the Q and A's, actually.
I'm
So,
very honest. Honest?
um,
Yeah, that too. Talking about
um,
Milan.
I suppose for anyone who doesn't know, we are cousins. So I know quite a lot about you. So I'm going to try
Far too
and
much.
step back, and I've been asking our mailing list to ask you some questions, and so I will be asking you questions. You'll be like, well, you know all that. So these are from our mailing list.
Okay. I pretend I don't
um,
know you.
and I suppose let's start on when you started being an artist. I mean, you've really only joined us in the last, what, 10, 12 years. Um, you weren't always an artist. Can you give your background to everyone?
Well, I've always painted, but I haven't always been an artist. I certainly didn't believe I was an artist. That's a whole other story. As you know, my mum's an artist, and of course, your side, where you're O'Farrell like me, and my mum is a Ahern. So on the Ahern side, we have poets, we have artists, we have jewelry makers, and on the and writers, and on the O'Farrell side, we have artists and jewelry makers and all sorts of stuff. So it was there in bucket loads growing up. My mum was taught by a member of Aistona, so I would have grown up peeking around his studio, and it definitely percolated in. But I also had a superly highly developed inner critic, and I think part of that came from seeing what good artists can do. And believing that I should be able to do that off the bat. And so, a big part of my story was, right at the beginning, I remember leaving school, and I kind of topped the class in art, and everybody just assumed I'd go to art college. And I was like, I'm not good enough to go to art college, because my level of what was good was so high, that internally I just felt like I would
But
never survive.
did you
And
want to be an artist? Did you, or?
really at that stage, and my mom wasn't really keen, because she kind of felt that certainly at the time anyway, that art college was very, very much about concept and identity, and that it could be quite brutal, and that I wasn't really strong enough for that already, with this huge monkey on my back. Into that, I'd just be like floored.
Yeah.
So, and I think she was right. I just don't think it was my time. I don't think I was ready, and I have no regrets. I was off in London and various places with my daughter, who's now at the stage of looking around colleges and things, and I was sitting there going, ooh, would I like to do it now? And I'm not even sure I'd like to do it now. I can see the benefits. I can see the benefits, for sure. But there's also disadvantages. And I don't believe in looking back and picking through your life and saying that was a bad decision. You know what I mean? It's as they say, a beautiful and crooked road, and just as it should be, and I kind of feel like that. So I left college. I went into veterinary nursing. That's what I started.
That's how I remember you growing up.
Loved animals. They still feature in my life pretty heavily. So I have he's sleeping in his bed, and I have a chew right here in case he gets bothersome.
Yeah,
very quiet. Gets into everything. So I went to London, and I went to college there, veterinary nursing, which was great fun. I was in an agricultural college with 700 boys and about 15 female veterinary nurses, so it was a real chore. And then I worked in London as a practice manager and as a veterinary nurse, and then eventually I was still really young, came back home and started my first business, and had a blast, really enjoyed it, learned bucket loads, but of course didn't make any money. And then I went into a series of other positions, which kind of gave me the business know-how that when I did finally come to painting, that I had that behind me, and I'm really glad I did. You know, that's been really, really helpful to me.
And I mean, your very early paintings are quite different now. To me, there's more textures. Like you really. I'm just even looking at the background of me here with the Sugarloaf one. I mean, it really feels like you're there with your paintings. You put loads and loads of layers on them, don't you?
Well, I worked out a prima, so it's all wet and wet. And so the layering happens, it all happens very quickly. So the preparation stages are very important in alla prima. So the sketching and then underpainting, and sometimes that's line drawing, sometimes it's more, and then mixing the colors on the palette, and then the paint goes on hot and heavy. And that gives that kind of loose feeling, even though it isn't always very loose because you've done all of that preparation. But what's been interesting for me over the last little while with COVID and we're all being locked in, which is funny because like I work from home anyway, right? Most artists are kind of laughing at everybody else saying, from home. But I think what changed for me with COVID, after the first total panic of, oh my God, all the galleries are closing, yada, 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 and the fear and everything else that we all felt in those very early days, and then worrying about my business and, you know, paying the bills and all that, I think I then realized, you know, I wasn't driving my kids to school, and I wasn't didn't have the kind of routine of the things that I would do in the week. And so I had more time, and I'm really grateful for that. And it came for me, COVID has been, I mean, obviously it's been hugely awful for all the people who've been ill and worse, but it did come at a great time for me because I was ready to look at different things and have been for a little while. And so I said, right, everything's on the table. I started working in different process. I've been experimenting with things you can see with Bear.
Yeah, that's what a lot of the artists that I've spoke to, they all said the same. It's given them time to experiment the ideas. One thing I've noticed with this show, you have a lot of more landscape work. Was that due to COVID, or was that?
It had started. It had started, but I think with COVID, it allowed me time to get out and paint, which I just find that I very rarely have time. And when I do have time, the weather's bad or whatever. But I found with COVID, you know, you couldn't go anywhere, and we were all dying for an excuse to go out, and I could go out and paint and take reference photos, but also I started experimenting with process. So I would paint on a colored background, and I would often do sketches and then a line drawing. So I started with doing, I've been experimenting a lot with mark making and energy. So not even using a colored background, starting with white and using the acrylic stage as a way to bring energy to the piece. So even though that isn't seen necessarily, there's still, and it doesn't matter about the mark, it's just about bringing that energy to it from the beginning. Things like I often listen to podcasts and books when I'm painting, and I start doing that because the energy of a podcast or listening to a book, it's quite a gentle energy. And so during the COVID thing, I literally turned up the music. All about creating energy. And it's funny, like Bethany is a great one. She'll come in and she'll catch me listening to something and she'll say, "There's no energy in that, Mom." So the landscapes have kind of come out. They had started before, and the ones that you see in this show are kind of the start of that. And but just trying stuff with no expectation, you know, landscape and I've gone back to doing some of the floral work in different ways. And and animals. I've done animals since they were the first things that I did when I started painting. And I've always resisted doing them because I kind of didn't want to get into, people wanting me to be their Johnny. So I've kind of resisted sort of putting them in galleries and stuff. But over COVID,
you're going to get portrait commissions now.
But just feeling that I can do anything, I found myself starting to paint animals. So
you really do, yeah. You really have. I mean, over the years, I've seen so many different shows of like we usually give you a show every 2 years, and your theme is always different. What the very first, I had a question from a client earlier, and they said, what was the background of the Wellington boots? Why did you start doing that? Was that just by accident, or?
I think I told you this before, Denise, but I was interviewed like years ago now, and somebody asked me why my paintings were all about home. And I remember at the time thinking, they kind of are. And I think the welly boots are about family and they're about home. And that's like, I've done so many different series, but the thing that is the river flowing through them all is that they're all about home. They're all about the imperfect family. The loving but imperfect family. And the welly boots for me, like they're such a quintessentially Irish thing, but they're also like we would have grown up, we all grew up with loads of wellies, in the house, and then being passed down from cousins to cousins, and there's always a pair that'll fit you, whether it's a sunny day and you're traipsing about in shorts, or whether it's lashing rain in the winter, there's always welly boots around. And so it has that kind of Irish feeling. It has that feeling of home, and sort of, I love the compositional element of it as well, in stacking them with diagonals and it leading this way and that way. And they're very current as well too, because you have the whole people getting married at wellies and the festival thing and all of that. So I think of all of the series that I have done, the interiors and the wellies are the ones that haven't let me go.
Yeah, that's your style. That's your distinctive kind of style, isn't it? Your trademark.
I've been very quickly done with other series. I'm not interested in painting any more of those, and sometimes people ring me and say, if a customer wants whatever, and I'm like,
no, you won't do it. I mean, I've asked you for a teacup painting. You won't do it.
I am done with them. But the wellies haven't let me go. So, and the interiors. But that said, as I said, with COVID, I have had a chance to shake it up. And I think that's really good for artists every now and again, just to step outside of the things they're known for and the things that they know are safe, the kind of comfort zone stuff.
Yeah.
So but yeah, and I don't know. I mean, we'll see.
I should say, if anyone does have any questions for Roisin, just type them in and we'll try and read them all. There's a few comments here already. Somebody wants to know, are you doing larger versions of the new Sugarloaf ones, the new landscape work? Are you going to go bigger?
Well, the one that's behind you.
That's 80 by 80, isn't it? Yeah, so I love it.
What's that? What's 80? Is that nearly a meter? It's not far off.
Actually, in the video you sent for the show, it shows you walking through there where the Sugarloaf is, and I just thought, it's really just, it's exactly where you live. It's amazing how you haven't painted that before. But as you said, you're able to now probably experience your landscape.
Oops. I lost you there. Somebody tried to ring me with what happened.
I gathered that.
No, I don't think there's a way to stop that. Is there when you're on your computer? Let me see if
I have no idea. I'm just glad you're still here because we've got cut off a few times from other artists.
Okay, I'm trying to see if I can close down apps and things, but I think I'll just do nothing and hope for the best. Yeah.
So I was nice surprise to see Bear in the background there. That's the first I've seen your animal portraits years ago, but this is kind of more detailed one. And we do take on a lot of commissions for the Wellington boots. Is this something that we can now take on? Are you going to allow?
Because it's a whippet. I know you. You're totally biased. I think so. I've done Labradors and I've done cats, and I've obviously bears a whippet. But I think, it's funny, you know, because I've been working on some new landscapes, and I was working this week on a landscape, and it took me like hours and hours and hours for days and days and days. And this one, it's not finished yet. That's not the background that's going to be on it. But I mean, I was into it this morning, and it was done, you know. So it's the energy is there for what you're ready for. Yeah. So I definitely think I'll do some more of these, and maybe some more other ones as well, like not bear. You must have at least, you know, 4 pieces of clothing that have whippets on them. I
have a whippet too, so I can't comment. We're the same in the family.
Well, they're kind of in vogue at the moment. Of course, they won't always be. They'll be back to awful skinny dogs.
We're bringing in dachshunds now. That's the new one, isn't it?
Yeah, I've seen those too.
Is there a particular painting that you just don't want to let go? I mean, will you hold on to that one now because it's bare, it's quite personal to you? Or
no, I'm not a very sentimental person when it comes to my own paintings, but I do have.
It's great for us because I do
have what I call my pension paintings, which is a list of paintings that I've held on to that I really like. And recently, like I had a big one here in the kitchen, and then I had another one that replaced it, and that went into your show. So there's nothing here. Right. I'll have to go up there, but I'm not really. It's like I kind of feel a lot of paintings in a house belonging to the artist is a bit like photographs of yourself in your house. You know, when you go into somebody's house and it's full of photographs of them, it's kind of a little odd, isn't it? And
definitely.
It's different with artists, but I do feel there's a limit to how many paintings you can have in your house of your own work. So, you know, I have them down the back of my couch and things.
I'll mind them for you.
I don't trust you.
I have a question here from Helen. Do you use a limited color palette?
I do. So I use a split palette. So I have a warm and a cool of each of the primaries. So 2 yellows, 2 reds, and 2 blues, and then white and black. And then I have a couple of sneaky extras that I kind of took from Jan's palette back when I was a kid, which would be yellow ochre, which is a great earth color, sap green, which is a great additional green for foliage colors, and burnt umber. I use burnt umber as well, and I use that as a kind of a warm black. So I make a chromatic black, which is a mixed black, and it's much deeper and richer than a bought black, like lamp black, for instance, would be a flatter black. So I mix that from alizarin crimson and viridian, but it's a cool black. And then my burnt umber acts as a warm black, but it is actually brown. So that's my palette. That's what I work from. And the idea is that you can mix any color from those from that palette, whereas you could have millions of those little tubes of all sorts of colors that you see in the art shop, and you go, "Ooh, that's lovely." And when you think to use it is the first time, thing, and you're in the, oh, I have that color, and then secondly, where is it? It's probably lost in the bottom of a box and gone hard by the time you use it. So, the split palette works really well.
And I know you've got you teach online, and it's a big audience for you. I had someone asking me earlier, will you ever do children's classes?
I doubt it.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of thought that as well.
I love my own, as like they say about other things. But it's a very different skill, I think, teaching kids. And for me, I love teaching people who are really ready to make. A lot of the people who come to me are ready for a change in their lives. They're mostly women, like 80% women. And they are often at a place in their lives where they're ready to make a change. And by that, I mean that often they maybe have been creatives all their lives.
Like when you were starting off.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be, fitting to my experience. But they are at a place where they are ready to sort of stop being something for everybody else and to stop putting their creativity in the corner and to actually be serious about it. And what they need is encouragement, because again, with that inner critic thing, to learn how to deal with that. And they need technique to learn how to paint. And then they need a good practice, good routine and structure to build a body of work and to continue. And it's funny, like we have laughed, there's people who have come to me who, seemingly have no talent, and yet within a year or two or three, they're really producing. And I can see it because often people are maybe really good at cooking and presenting food, and maybe they're really good at designing their gardens or knitting or
something creative.
Creativity, I find, just comes out. It's like you dress beautifully, and it's like your creativity will come out in some way. It doesn't necessarily happen.
Yeah. But I think with you as well, you managed to get that out. And there's not, it's very hard to get a good art teacher and an artist. And anyone I know who's gone to your classes, there's nothing but positivity from it. I mean, I think you teach technique as well. You're not going to be teaching just what you know. I had somebody who told me they signed up to your class because they wanted to try and get a Wellington boot painting for themselves. But you don't teach that. It's pure technique, which I love.
I don't teach copy me painting. I don't teach you put this stroke down and then this stroke down and you end up with a painting. I teach composition and preparation. I teach color theory. All of those things. But that's just one little part of the puzzle. Technique is only one thing, because you can be someone who's totally non-creative and learn all there is to know about painting and create something that's almost photorealistic. But like, we have photos. Do you know what I mean? What I want is to help them, yes, to have the tools to be able to express their creativity in paint, but also to have the confidence and the ability to be able to express who they are in what they do. That's the thing that I think is often missing in online courses. And of course, the other thing is I teach the business skills for artists, and I've been doing that for years. And I've been talking a great talk about building a course, an online course for that, for years. And people keep saying, when, because I can't get everywhere and they can't get everywhere. But COVID allowed me to do that. So that's been the big thing for me. So that's been fantastic. And
so will you stick to this online then, or will you still go back to Airfield and do a workshop every year, or are you just?
That's going to happen, with COVID, and it depends on if we get another wave or anything. So
you just can't make plans yet.
Yeah, I will definitely go back to doing workshops, because it's a very different thing, 3 days in a room with the artist to 6 weeks or 12 weeks online. They both have their benefits. You get more out of 12 weeks online because you actually have more time to go through it all. But there's also something about actually being in the room. So yeah, I'll definitely go back to it. I just, yourself, I don't know what.
No, I mean, we're the same with gatherings at the gallery. I mean, even though you can allow up to 50, but there's no point planning big openings yet anyway. I have another question from Rebecca. Do you get flashes of inspiration, or do you mull over ideas over time?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I get flashes, and I find when there's an idea, a flash of color or texture or subject matter, it's best just to get it out straight away and just see where it goes. But then I'll also, like the animals, for instance, I've kind of resisted for years because I kind of feel, oh, there's lots of people do animals already, and I don't want to be taking commissions for people's pets. Commissions for pets are very difficult because the kind of paintings that I do, I want them not necessarily to be somebody's actual pet, even though it's bare. I want them to sit in a room and just be a piece of art. I don't really want to concentrate just on getting a likeness of a particular, like portraiture, a particular person. So I've resisted it for a long time, but I think, the whole COVID thing has really shaken things up for everybody. And for me, it just seems to be rising. So I don't know. Watch this space.
Do you sketch everything out? Like, did you sketch the painting behind you of Bear out first?
Not trying to get any kind of accuracy, just playing around. Let me see. So I often do like a big sheet of paper with stickers, and then I'll literally just play around. And I
love sketchbooks. And do you bring sketchbooks everywhere with you?
No, I don't. Really? I don't go on these.
In the west of Ireland, when you go to the west.
Yeah, I do. I used to draw the kids a lot when they were younger, and even like I was in a girlfriend's house. Of going up to the I was going up to the bathroom, and I was going up the stairs, and I saw these sketches on the stairs as you go up, and I was like, oh, they're nice, and then I realized they were mine from like 1880s. I'd been somewhere, and they were of a monastery or something. I'd obviously sketched them and stuck them in a cheap and given them to her, and she still had them. And I was just like, oh my God, So I do sketch, and I have been for years, but at the moment too, it's part of the process. And again, trying not to have a nice sketch, trying not to have a pretty outcome, but looking at it like energy. So literally standing back from and painting from different angles and using different medium, like with there I was using crayon and pastel and biro.
Wow. Really? Wow. Yeah. Do you think it's different for each type of do you think it's different though for like with the interior paintings? You really do lay that out, don't you? You have this, what chair to put in, with the mantelpiece, so do you think then with the landscapes you're kind of letting more freedom into them than the interiors? Does it just depend?
Yeah, see, with the interiors, if you are too loose, I find that the composition gets into trouble because it needs a focal point, and the perspective goes haywire. Like there's a certain amount of looseness that is quirky and works, but there's also a point at which it becomes distracting. So, but with the landscapes, I think there's a little bit more freedom. And I, the one behind you there, I quite like the darker ones too. That kind of there's a lot of color, but it is moodier, So yeah, I don't know. I'm not as drawn to the kind of prettier scenes of things like harbors and sunny days and things like that as I am to those. And I live right under the mountain, so
I know, yeah.
Feeling of its heft, and I walk around here a lot, and in that little video, you can see like a walk underneath the mountain.
Your landscape. I suppose. So, if somebody gave you a commission to do Croagh Patrick, would you do it, or would you go down and travel and spend time there? Because it feels like you have to know your landscape.
Yeah, I don't think I would be as interested in doing paintings of the kind of most beautiful spots in Ireland. I think it would be places that I'm in that I feel a connection to, and that's been, and also I've been kind of struggling with wrestling with that and seeing how that comes out over the last while. I mean, there's another one there, I don't know if you can see it, which is the other side of the Sugarloaf.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Yeah.
Different treatment, that one. It's kind of
that's
more
beautiful.
the perspective in it and stuff. So yeah.
So you always have a few, don't you, on the go? I mean, because they take so long to dry, you have to. But how many?
With alla prima, they
Yeah.
have to be done within a certain amount of time. You can't keep layering up.
So are you not tempted to, when you see something, oh, I want to add to that, would you not be tempted to?
I put them away.
Right.
I put them up to dry, and I can't see them.
Right. That's interesting.
I'm not interested in going back over and over and over and over paintings. What happens for me is I get fussier and fussier and fussier and tighter and tighter and tighter. I'd much rather have a certain amount of paintings that just didn't work because I didn't correct it at the right time, or I didn't, bring it to the right place, and just to say, okay, well, they didn't work. And to adopt a process of going, because for me anyway, it loses its immediacy, it loses its energy.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I don't know. I mean, and I've also learned not to make judgments, because I'm the most judgy person known to mankind when it comes to myself. And I have learned not to do that. I've learned to let other people make the decision, to the point of giving work to, letting galleries choose the work. Because
I love that.
I find that like it's happened again and again and again, where I have had, say, 10 or 12 paintings here for a show, and you or Declan or Ken or somebody would come up to pick them up, and I'll have one of them turn to the wall or two of them turn to the wall, and Declan does always say to me, "What's that?" And I'll be like, "That's nothing. That's nothing. Nothing to see here." And you can be sure before he leaves, he has it out and over to have a look at. And there was one 2 years ago in the show, and I wasn't even sure if I'd show it to him, but I had it in the room, and I told him I had 12 pieces and I had 13. So this was the extra one. And I really wasn't confident about it. And anyway, he said, "I'll take it." And then it ended up in a national paper, because he chose it to be the lead painting. And I opened the paper and it was there. And I was like, oh my God, of all the paintings, he chose that one. And it was the first to sell.
But I think galleries know their market. They do know which ones will sell quickly enough.
I just, I finished the painting. Some of them I love, some of them and some of them I don't love. And I just let them, once they're done, they're not my babies anymore.
Yeah.
The umbilical cord, they are something else. And I just let the galleries, decide on that then.
I have another question there from, where is it gone now? From Mairead, beautiful works. Were you initially influenced by any particular artist yourself?
That's not Mairead Ronan, is it?
No.
Okay. Tell me that my painting made comic relief. I was like, yay!
Oh, right. Brilliant.
Sorry, what was the question?
Are you influenced by any particular artist?
Oh, I'm influenced by loads of artists, and always have been, and it changes by the year. When I was growing up, I was very influenced by Gauguin and in terms of color pairing, and by Van Gogh in terms of paint, the texture of paint. Lucian Freud was another one that I really enjoyed in terms of the application of paint and color. So, and more modern painters too. So I think I have a term called a pull, which is a part of a painting that makes you go, ooh, look at that.
Yeah.
It's like you just see a little piece of a painting, a little something. It could be a brush stroke or a bit of light coming through, or it could be anything at all. And so I look at those things. When I see something that makes me kind of get excited, I'll stop and I'll look at it. I'll look at it from a heart point of view, and I'll look at it from a technique point of view. So it's like head and heart, just I look at it to see how did the artist execute it within that painting? Why is it effective? And why does it move me?
Yeah.
So all of those things.
Good answer.
I remember, this is years ago now, I was in the National Gallery with a friend of mine, and there was a Goya, I can't remember the name of it, but it's the Spanish lady in the black lace, and she's sitting on a bench, and there's gold brocade in the bench. You know that painting?
Yeah, I know the one.
And it's like luminous against the deep black of her attire. And then we went over to Doheny and Nesbitt, as you do. We're sitting there, and I'm waiting for my pint to draw. And we were in a little snug, and on the wall, it was wallpapered. And the wallpaper, it was that kind of shiny, embossed wallpaper. And there was like years of grime on it. And it was kind of like a yellow ochre color, and it just reminded me of the Goya painting. Right. And it was one of the things that started, just one of the small pulls, one of the little things that pulled me into the interiors, that sense of color coming through.
Oh, yeah.
Texture. So it could be anywhere.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's really there's another interesting question from Donna. Do you paint your landscapes plein air? Now, I've seen you paint out in your garden, but have you ever set up plein air?
Not much in the past, but more recently, and during the COVID thing, I got myself a new box and a new kit, and so that I could literally just up and go when the weather was good. Yeah. And I think I'm more drawn though to days when the weather isn't amazing, like in sun overhead, and so that means that it's more temperamental and the chances of rain are higher. So I find that a bit of a challenge. So I tend to go out and do studies. So they're not really intended to be larger paintings, and I bring those back. And they, again, as I was saying about changing my process, they inform the painting. Okay. The other thing is, I don't want to just paint what's in front of me in a landscape, looking for the perfect place to paint. So I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the source of what I can use in the composition and the heart of it, the feel of it. So I think the whole thing of living under the sugarloaf, because I live here and it's the space I inhabit. It's not surprising that keeps coming back.
Yeah, it was. And do you have a preference of size? Because I've seen huge canvases from you. Do you prefer to paint big?
Do I prefer to paint big? I love painting big, but not necessarily in every series. I don't know what it is about painting. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I think it depends on the painting. Some paintings want to be painted big, and sometimes I'm in the mood to paint big. But the other thing too is that some of the bigger paintings that I've painted, they're like 6 foot wide or something stupid. Yeah. Not very many people have a wall that big. To spend, so they don't tend to go as quickly. So I kind of, I could spend all day painting big paintings, and it would take a while for them to sell. So so that the bigger paintings create a great impact and help to sell the mid-sized paintings, and the smaller paintings are more impulse. They're like people will come and they'll say, oh, it's not a big monetary, thing for them, and so they can pick up a smaller painting. Yeah. But the mid-sized ones are the ones that keep the show on the road, and they're much easier to hang in a normal house.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
How do you learn to cut the cord to your paintings and let them go?
I've learned to care less, and how to do that is, I think, life experience to a large degree. When I was younger and so caught up in myself, I was younger and more, but I think I got to a point in life, I don't know, I mean, this is something that I help my students with a lot. A lot of it is practice. You've got to train yourself to say, after I finish, like when I paint something, the process, what I put into it, the creative energy, the technique, and how good I can make that, and all of that up until when it's finished is all like totally connected to who I am and what I can do and how it turns out. But once it's finished, you can't do any more to it. After that point, it's none of your business what anybody thinks of it, because it's not your baby.
Yeah.
At that point, it is, whether somebody likes it or not, it's nothing to do with you. It's not that they like you or not. And that's
exactly, that's what you have to separate. Yeah, exactly.
While you're creating it and developing it, it's an extension of you. But once it's finished, that's when it becomes a thing that people can pass judgment on without passing judgment on you. And one person will love it, and one person will hate it, and somebody will say it's good, and somebody will say it's awful.
That's art, isn't it? So subjective. Yeah. And tell me about your titles, because you do put quite a lot of thought into your titles. What are they based on? Is it, do you title them after the painting or before?
Oh, after. So I have a note page in my phone, and I have a copybook, which I should have brought it out for you. It's pages and pages and pages of titles. Some of them are lyrics from songs, or quotes from poetry, or sayings. I love sayings. I think I've probably used them all up by now. I write them down as they come to me, or sometimes somebody will say something to me, and I remember I was sitting in a cafe once with a woman who she's an editor for Penguin, actually, but she's a friend of mine. Well, she's a friend of mine, and she said, living on the clip, he'd be living on the Clippings of Tin, and I just and she's like, what is she on? But I do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Just so much what I
yeah.
And then when I've finished, I batch them, so I photograph them like in a batch and color correct them and get them right, and then I will go through them, and I'll go through my little book or my notes, and it's either going to work or it's not. It's either right for that painting or it's not. But I think titles are an extension of the painting. I hate seeing blue number 2 on a painting.
I know, untitled. Yeah, it really does add to the painting, the title. It means so much.
And the busier I have got, sometimes the less time I've had, and occasionally one will slip past me, and I'll see it on a gallery thing, and I'll see the painting, and I go, "That's a crap title. What was that?" Gotta do better than that.
One more question. Do you still use a base? Oh, that's actually interesting. A base acrylic when you paint the landscape work?
I do. In fact, of late, I'm experimenting now over the last couple of months, actually. But so now what I do is white canvas, and I start with an acrylic color and a brush. And I stand quite far back from it, and I go at it. It's a line drawing, but it's very expressive. And it's just blocking in the shapes. So maybe 5 or 6 shapes. Then I go in with a different color acrylic, and I block in the tones. So what areas are going to be darker, what area is going to be mid-tone, what area is going to be lighter. And then I will, this isn't the way I always work, but recently I have gone in with acrylic and actually blocked in the colors, the base values really, with some color of the landscape. And then I go in with the oils. So that's a much longer process. And that's what I was saying, I just finished the landscape and it took me days to do. Whereas I just there in 2 hours. And what I did was I did an undercoat of pink, a line drawing in blue of the dog, and then I literally mixed my paint and lurried into it.
Wow.
And something about that approach that kind of works for me.
Yeah.
and it's also the painting's either going to work or it isn't. I'm not afraid of failure. I'm not afraid of scraping. Like the background to that painting there is kind of purples and beigey colors, and half of it scraped off, and the rest of it's coming off as soon as we finish. And I'm going to try a different color, and it's like I have nothing to lose.
Yeah, I love the way you're still experimenting. It's great.
And I think in a way, COVID helped me with that a bit, because all the galleries closed. So it was like I'm constantly on this thing of deadlines for galleries now, because you get to a certain point, all the galleries are saying, I need new work, I need you to refresh this, we've got a show coming up. And COVID kind of just turned the switch off, and it was great.
No, everyone says that. And it gives you that time just to create and get, it's, in one way it was good. So what's your plan next? Are you just working away? Is anything that are you going to stay with the landscapes and just work towards the shows, or who knows? You're not giving it away.
I'm refusing to pin myself down just now.
Okay.
I think I'm leaning towards doing some more of these, but whether it becomes a new series or not, I'm not sure yet. And the landscapes too, I think. But I just did I don't know if you can see it there, but there's a painting there of a window scene that and the way these things go. So, I know there was a lady somebody bought a similar one in the show in Killarney, and then somebody else saw it and wanted me to do something similar, and ended up buying 2 larger paintings from you. And then somebody else said, could they commission me to do another one? And I did one similar, and now she wants something else bigger. And it's like, so these things, one painting can, before you know it, spark a number of paintings along. So the interiors and the welly boots, I don't think are going to go anywhere just yet. But outside of that, I will continue with the landscapes, and possibly now with the animals, and see where the journey takes me.
And do you mind doing, for example, that piece you were just talking about, the window piece, do you mind if somebody keeps commissioning that, or do you draw the line on, no, I've done 2 already similar, I'm not doing any more?
Well, the great thing with working with galleries is that I can say that to the gallery owner, and they can communicate it in a nice way to the customer.
Yeah.
So the lady who was interested in that painting would have loved me to do another one the same. And the gallery was able to sort of say to her, look, she won't repeat a painting exactly the same. No. And now that I have 2 of them, that one and another one that are very similar, I've sort of said to her, I'm not even happy to do it in exactly the same size. That it'll be a different size, a different composition. And the way that I deal with that is I say, look, I will paint a painting based on that painting, but it'll be different. And I'll take into consideration the things that you liked, but there's no obligation. If you like this new painting and you'd like to buy it, then that's great, happy days. And if you don't, that's fine. And that gives me freedom not to copy paint. I don't.
I know that's you're so true like that about the work, and I love that. Yeah.
The welly boots are the most similar of anything that I do.
Yeah.
There's a huge amount you can do, but I do make an effort that everyone is unique. Different backgrounds, and whether it's indoors or outdoors, or different welly boots, or whatever. And that's important, because when somebody is buying a piece of original art, the whole point of it is it's an original piece of art.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much. I know we didn't answer all the questions, but we will afterwards. We'll type in and respond to everyone. But thank you so much. That was really nice evening, getting to know you.
Listen, get to know you more. Before we go, I want to give you a bit of a clap on the back. Because, no, I know. You just turn away now, because you're
just knock it off. I'm sorry, everyone.
I'm an artist, and I really do think, so many people now are using the internet in a way that we never did before. People are buying stuff online, and art is so subjective. People feel they need to see it and everything else, but all of this is fantastic. I mean, the whole idea of bringing Zoom into people's studios is such a
well, it's great that all the artists have agreed, like yourself. I've absolutely loved it. Love seeing. I'm really astonished at how clean the studio is, though.
But I really do think your website looks fantastic. The new website and the new app where you can put the paintings up
on the wall, and that's been just to have all that, before lockdown. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Roisin. I really appreciate it. All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.